When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: Oldsmobile. User: Hightail66. Posted December 15th, 1996.
I bought the Cutlass because it was the cheapest thing in the classifieds that didn't look like it needed to be towed off the page. 78 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, faded tan paint, cracked vinyl seats, the kind of car everybody's uncle owned at some point. The seller lived out past the feed mill and acted like he couldn't get rid of it fast enough. He paced around the yard while I looked it over, kept saying he needed it gone before the weekend, like the car owed him money. I figured he was just the anxious type. The engine turned over, the lights worked, and $900 for a running car in '95 was good enough for me. Weird stuff started before I'd even made it home. I stopped at the light near Carter's Pharmacy, hand on the wheel, thinking about what kind of seat covers I could afford. Out of nowhere, the radio clicked on by itself. This old tape deck radio, no presets, no automatic anything, just flipped on and spewed static. Underneath the static was this low mumbling sound, like a TV left on in another room. I turned the knob, nothing changed. I shut the radio off entirely, and the whispering kept going for another couple seconds before fading out. I told myself it was a bad ground wire. Old cars always have electrical gremlins. But then came the smell. Next morning, it hit me before I even backed out of the driveway. At first, it was faint. Old cigarette smoke baked into the seats, but halfway to work, it shifted into something sweeter, heavier, like rotting apples mixed with damp carpet. I rolled the windows down, even though the air still had that late March bite to it. The smell didn't go away so much as sink into the fabric of my clothes. By Wednesday, the Cutlass started feeling less like a used car and more like a place I shouldn't be alone in. It happened when I grabbed the seatbelt. The latch was warm and not car seat in the sun warm. Morning frost was still clinging to the windshield. That metal felt like someone had been holding it right before I touched it. I dropped it and stared at the dash, trying to convince myself the heater vent must have angled wrong or the belt had been sitting near the transmission tunnel, but I knew when something had body warmth. This had body warmth. I spent that night tearing the interior apart, looking for any logical explanation under seats, under the carpet, inside the trunk, behind the spare tire well. No old food, no dead animal, no mildew, nothing that could explain the smell or the warm seatbelt or the static whispering on the radio. The car was cleaner than most used ones I'd driven. That should have been reassuring. It wasn't. Friday afternoon, I I did something stupid. I sat in the Cutlass in my driveway with the engine off, staring at the cracked dashboard, and asked out loud, "Is somebody in here with me?" The dome light flickered once. I shot out of that car so fast I didn't bother closing the door, sat on the porch steps breathing hard like something had chased me, even though it hadn't moved at all. I told myself it was a bad contact in the light. I told myself lots of things. None of them worked. That night, the horn honked. One long, steady blast that jolted me awake at 3 a.m. I ran outside in my socks, expecting to catch teenagers messing with me, but the yard was empty. The Cutlass sat silent in the driveway, headlights dark, doors locked. I lifted the hood and checked the battery cables. Solid. No sign anyone had been near it. The cold made my breath fog while I stood there trying to understand how a horn honked on a locked car with nobody inside. On Monday, the rearview mirror started turning on its own. I was at the corner stop sign, tapping ash out the window, when I looked back up. The mirror was pointed straight at my eyes. I adjusted it without thinking, and 2 blocks later it shifted again, not slipping, turning. I tightened it, pushed it firm, made sure it was steady. Half a mile down the road, it angled toward me again. I didn't look into the back seat. I didn't want to know what I might or might not see. That afternoon, the smell hit me the moment I opened the door. So thick and sweet and rotten that my eyes watered. I leaned in deeper and the smell vanished instantly, like it had been tied to my first breath inside the cabin. I stood there in the driveway with the door open, heart thudding, waiting for it to come back. It didn't. Not until I sat down. And that's when I made up my mind. I was done. I didn't care if I lost every cent. I'd sell it, scrap it, push it into the river if I had to. But the next morning, the passenger door was open. Wide open. No footprints in the dew, no signs of forced entry, just open, swinging slightly in the breeze. My stomach dropped. I took 2 steps toward it, and the door slammed shut so hard it echoed across the yard. I nearly bolted, but some stupid corner of my brain decided that if I ignored it, it might go away. So I unlocked the door, climbed in, and shut it behind me. The smell came back instantly. Rotting, fruit and stale cigarettes and something underneath, something sour. Before I could reach the key, the radio clicked on again. Breathing, not static, not voices, breathing, slow, heavy, too close to the microphone. Someone inhaling and exhaling right beside my ear. "Who are you?" I whispered, without meaning to. Breathing stopped, and in the hiss that followed, a voice, thin, ragged, pushed through the static. "Stay." The dome light flickered like a strobe. The mirror tilted toward me again. The heater blasted hot air even when the switch was turned off. The whole car felt tighter, like the air itself had weight and was pressing on my chest. "No," I said, barely above a whisper. "No, you picked the wrong person." The smell surged so strong I nearly gagged, but I shoved the car into reverse, backed out too fast, and didn't look in the mirror. I drove straight to Murdoch's Salvage on the edge of town, left the engine running, and tossed the keys at the guy behind the counter. "Take it. Title's in the glove box." Tried to ask what was wrong with it. I didn't hang around to answer. I walked home in the cold wind, and didn't look back once. A couple days later, a friend drove me past the salvage yard. I wasn't going to look. Hell no, but the car caught my eye anyway. Sitting by the fence, passenger door cracked open just an inch. Rearview mirror angled toward the seat like somebody was still sitting there. And even with the windows closed and the heater blasting in my friend's truck, something sweet and rotten drifted in as we passed. Just faint, but enough.
Subject, migration. User, early to you. Posted August 3rd, 1996.
How do you tell someone their dream home is a nightmare? Not in the Tom Hanks money pit kind of way, but more in the "this place is haunted and you should not be here" kind of way. I'm asking because this is the situation my parents are in, but they haven't figured it out yet, and I'm worried that by the time they do, it'll be too late. New York City has been my family's home ever since they came over from the old country. We set up shop on what would eventually become the Upper West Side and have been there for generations. My parents like to say that when the city finally turned the lights off for good, it would be a DeGroot that flipped the switch. My sister Emily said she first noticed a change in Mom and Dad's attitude toward the city when David Dinkins won the election in '89. I'd like to think it's because of Dinkins' policies rather than his skin color, but municipal politics had never much mattered to them while Ed Koch was running this place. I don't know. Either way, maybe a month after Dinkins being sworn in, they told us they were looking at land in North Carolina, and 3 months after that, they bought a place of land outside Asheville. Mom and Dad were so eager to get out of the city that they bought an old mining cabin to live in while they were having the house built. The house was barely a month into construction when they asked me and Emily to fly out to see them. I knew this would happen as they were both social but insular people and had left behind friends, hobby clubs, and everything else they'd used to fill their time. I resented being dragged out to the sticks just because they didn't have neighbors, but Emily guilted me into it. Because they didn't have anywhere for us to stay yet, Mom and Dad booked us at a newish Ramada in town. The hotel was fine, clean with an indoor atrium they were obviously proud of, but compared to the cabin my parents were living in, it was a palace. Their property was miles outside of town, which my dad kept touting as a benefit because cities were all falling into anarchy anyway. You probably already figured out that I'm not aligned with rural living, but I love my parents and wanted them to be happy, so I tried hard to look at the forested landscape rolling past my window with enthusiastic eyes. The moment I laid eyes on their property, though, I couldn't help myself. I hated it. The partially built skeleton of their new house looked huge, easily 5 times the size of their place back home, but it also filled me with a bad feeling I couldn't shake. Back in '85, I got jumped after leaving a movie at the New Amsterdam at Times Square. The guy who did it picked me up as I was leaving and followed me around the corner. I didn't see him, but I felt him, or at least I felt like something bad was going to happen, but couldn't nail down exactly what or why. That same feeling is what I got from my parents' land. They were so proud of the place. I couldn't bring myself to say anything to them, but every minute I spent there, the heaviness in my belly got worse. The mining cabin was at the end of the driveway, close to the road, that bought it from some abandoned emerald mine for a song and sunk several $1,000s into touching it up. The idea was, Mom said, that once the house was built, we could stay in the cabin when we came to visit. Dad chimed in that there were 2 small bedrooms in there, which meant room for grandkids when that day finally came. He actually used that word finally, so I knew the country air hadn't changed them all that much. Emily is a professional photographer, which means that she has, more by default than by choice, become the de facto family historian. She brings her camera to events, big and small, so there will be a record of the DeGroot family's many adventures. I've become so accustomed to hearing her shutter snapping away that I don't even hear it anymore. I assumed she was doing her thing at Mom and Dad's new place, but didn't think about it until she called me the week after we got back to the city. She was frantic. She told me that she'd been developing the photos of our trip, and in one shot of the cabin window, there had been a face. I thought she was pulling my leg, but she was dead serious. I asked her what kind of face, and she said it had been a man with a long black beard. She couldn't tell me how old he might have been, but said he looked furious. There's only one part of the conversation I remember word for word, which was this. His eyes, Mike, they were gone. I felt a chill run through me, but tried to keep Emily calm. I told her I was coming over. I wanted to see the photo first, then we could come up with a plan for showing it to Mom and Dad. What she said next practically froze my blood in my veins. She said that the photo was gone. She developed it and hung it up in her darkroom to dry, but when she went back in to take it down, it wasn't there. Every other photo was neatly hung, side by side, but where that particular cabin photo had been, there was now a space. The doors and windows had been locked. She hadn't had any visitors, but that photo had been neatly plucked off the line by someone. When I got there, I saw the gap myself, like the darkroom was missing a single white tooth. We searched her apartment top to bottom, but that photo, whatever it had shown, was nowhere to be found. Emily has been staying at my place since this happened. She's too afraid to go home, and though I don't think there's any standing threat, I get it. There's no playbook for this kind of thing. Hell, I don't even know what this kind of thing is, but I know our parents cannot stay in Asheville.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.